Many thanks for joining us on Ebru Africa News. Today, I'm Rina Shivisi. In the headlines.
William Samoei Ruto committed the crime of deportation or forcible transfer of population.
Kenya cases at the ICC. Office of the prosecutor dealt another blow as 4 more witnesses withdraw. Egypt military sweep. Army clears out all battle-prone regions. Mexico tropical storm. At least 20 killed, thousands evacuated following major floods in Mexico's Pacific coast. And the Great North Run Half Marathon. Bekele and Jepto carry the day. The International Criminal Court Office of the Prosecutor has been hit by yet another blow after former witnesses pulled out of the case against Kenya Deputy President William Ruto and his co-accused Joshua Arap Sang. Meanwhile, William Ruto left the country this morning for his trial, which resumes tomorrow.
The witnesses include survivors of Kiambaa Church arson attack, which left up to 35 people killed at the height of post-election violence.
They were led by their anointed leader, Mr. William Ruto.
International Criminal Court Fatou Bensouda said last week she has evidence of attempts to force prosecution witnesses to recant their evidence through bribery and intimidation.
You have been charged in count 1 with murder, constituting a crime against humanity.
Not guilty.
Ruto and Sang, both accused of perpetrating the violence, denied the charges when they appeared in the dock last week. The prosecutor is expected to call witness number 536 to the stand tomorrow in an effort to prove that Deputy President William Ruto and radio journalist Joshua Arap Sang were the architects of the violence in Rift Valley in 2008. The hearing of cases facing Mr. Ruto and Mr. Sang started last Tuesday, but were adjourned on Wednesday because the prosecution had no witnesses ready. The prosecution claims Mr. Ruto and his alleged network strategized, planned, financed, provided weapons and transportation to ensure the eviction of PNU supporters from the Rift Valley. Senate and National Assembly members were among the members of the public who were at the airport when Ruto left this morning aboard a Kenya Airways flight. The case was adjourned last week because of the failure of witnesses to show up in court. 4 more other witnesses lined up to testify against the accused have also pulled out of the case. This is the critical week that Mr. Ruto and Sang faces the witnesses in a case that has united African countries against the International Criminal Court. Reporting for Ebru Africa, I'm Esbon Mugambe.
Now, the news of Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto appearing at the ICC for crimes against humanity has been received with mixed reactions in Kenya. Majority of his supporters terming the move as inappropriate. Our reporter Agnes Kakunga toured Ruto's home region and files this report.
William Samoei Ruto committed the crime of deportation or forcible transfer of population.
At the age of 46, William Ruto is facing charges related to the deadly post-election violence witnessed in Kenya 5 years ago.
My name's William Kipchirchir.
The start of his trial at the International Criminal Court came just days after members of parliament in Kenya became the first in the world to approve moves to withdraw recognition of the court's jurisdiction.
As many as of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it.
Now, Kenya's Deputy President William Samoei Ruto, who is also the former member of parliament of this region, becomes the first serving official to appear at the ICC. His trial and that of President Uhuru Kenyatta is seen as a crucial test of ICC's ability to prosecute political leaders. Ruto has pleaded not guilty to crimes against humanity charges at the ICC. The mood at his home region, Eldoret North in western Kenya, is calm, with many following closely the proceedings at The Hague. William Boretto has known Ruto since his childhood. He is a worried man though. He says Ruto is innocent and he committed no crime.
I have known Ruto since he was a small child. He has grown up to be a responsible leader, and there is no way he committed any crime. He is innocent, but there are those inciting that he was involved. We will stand by him.
Boretto, Ruto's close family friend, says Ruto's case at The Hague has continued to affect his elderly mother. Boretto is not alone. Stephen Duwei is also a concerned man. To him, Ruto is a peace-loving man who is development-oriented and he never committed any crime.
Surely, such a good and caring man cannot be involved in any crime, especially crime of killing other people. We know him better than that. He is our child and he will remain innocent. I feel so bad to see him appearing at the ICC.
William Samuel Ruto.
Tuesday, 10th September 2013, Ruto's trial kicked off with his lead counsel Karim Khan taking up the defense side, laying down his evidence to show how Ruto was not involved in the crimes against humanity facing him.
And to drop the case against William Ruto.
Tuesday's proceedings left a majority of Ruto's supporters blaming the ICC of shallow investigations.
It seems the ICC prosecutor who first handled this case never carried out thorough investigations. It seems ICC has reached a dead end, especially with the issue of witnesses. It's not fair. Not fair at all to our people who are taken to The Hague.
For now, Kenyans and more so people from this region have to wait for the court's verdict. William Ruto and his co-accused radio journalist Joshua Arap Sang each faces 3 counts of murder, deportation and persecution after a wave of violence swept Kenya in 2007-2008, leaving more than 1,000 people dead and over 500,000 people homeless. Agnes Gakunga, Ebru Africa News, Eldoret North in Western Kenya.
Let's move to Egypt, where a spokesman for the army confirms that over 150 tunnels across the border with Gaza have been destroyed as part of an ongoing battle with militants.
The army is clearing buildings deemed a security threat at a distance of up to 1 kilometer from the Gaza border. The army spokesman said, accusing groups in the Hamas-run territory of mounting joint attacks with Sinai militants. Ahmed Ali, the spokesman, said the move did not amount to a buffer zone which Hamas fears Egypt is creating along the border to further isolate Gaza, whose economy is propped up by smuggling through tunnels to Sinai. He was speaking during a news conference to present the army's progress in an operation against the militants in Sinai.
The houses, which are located a few meters away from the Gaza Strip, pose a threat to Egypt's national security, especially if these houses have tunnels used for smuggling weapons and explosives. Building or institution that poses a threat to our national security will be evacuated, and the armed forces will compensate the owners accordingly.
Army spokesman Ahmed Ali said that the army had destroyed over 150 tunnels as part of its war against the Sinai militants.
In the period since July, the armed forces have destroyed more than 154 tunnels used for smuggling along our borders with the Gaza Strip, as well as 108 tanks containing 4 million liters of gasoline or diesel fuel.
Militants have been staging almost daily attacks on the security forces in Sinai. Pointing to a widening risk, rocket-propelled grenades were fired at a vessel passing through the Suez Canal on August 31st. Egyptian state media last week reported that Hamas had been involved in teaching extremists in Egypt how to plant bombs and that it had given them landmines, an accusation dismissed by the Palestinian group as an attempt to demonize it.
Tropical storm Manuel blasted Mexico's Pacific coast on Sunday, while Hurricane Ingrid crept towards the east state, triggering rain, landslides and floods that killed at least 20 people.
Thousands of people were evacuated as the two storms flanked Mexico on the Pacific and Gulf of Mexico, causing rivers to overflow, flooding streets and damaging bridges. State-run energy firm Pemex evacuated 3 oil platforms off the Gulf Coast of the northeastern state of Tamaulipas and shut down 24 wells, the company said on its Twitter account. On the west coast, Manuel weakened after making landfall near the Colima state town of Manzanillo, but it is still threatened to spark flash floods and mudslides. Its top winds slowed to 40 miles per hour as it moved northwest, and the storm was expected to dissipate on Monday. 6 people were killed when the van's driver lost control due to lack of visibility and a slippery road on their way to the resort city of Acapulco on Saturday.
Rwandans vote today in parliamentary polls seen to bolster the ruling party and highlight the stability of a country rocked by genocide nearly 20 years ago.
Some 6 million people will be eligible to cast their ballots, with turnout expected to be enthusiastic despite a low-key campaign and absence of any serious opposition to the Rwandan Patriotic Front. Out of 8 seats up for grabs, 53 are directly elected and 24 are reserved for women, the youth and handicapped, who are indirectly elected by local and national councils on Tuesday and Wednesday. Rwanda has undergone a dramatic transformation in the past 2 decades, with powerful economic growth and the strangling of corruption, credited to the strong rule of Kagame. The World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index for 2013 ranked Rwanda 52nd out of 185 countries and 3rd best in sub-Saharan Africa after Mauritius and South Africa. With Rwanda's economy one of the continent's fast growing, the government is keen to show off the election as a badge of national unity and democratic health. The small nation was left in ruins by a brutal genocide in 1994, in which close to 1 million people, mostly from ethnic Tutsi minority, were butchered by Hutu extremists.
Now, negotiations between Shell and Nigerian residents affected by 2 oil spills in 2008 failed to reach a compensation deal, with residents' lawyers calling the oil giant settlement offer insulting.
Talks began last week in Port Harcourt, the oil hub in southern Nigeria's Niger Delta region, with representatives of about 15,000 residents from Bodo, a cluster of fishing communities in Rivers State. Both the British-Dutch firm and the residents' lawyers say the talks had failed to reach a compensation deal, and it was unclear when further talks would occur. Sources familiar with the talks said Shell proposed a settlement of 7.5 billion naira, that is $46 million. However, Shell and lawyers for the community declined to discuss the total settlement amount. If a compensation agreement is not reached, the case may go to trial in Britain. Nigeria is Africa's biggest crude producer, but much of the Niger Delta oil region remains deeply impoverished. Decades of spills have caused widespread pollution in the region.
An Egyptian court on Saturday resumed the trial of toppled dictator Hosni Mubarak, who is accused of complicity in the deaths of protesters during the 2011 uprising against his rule.
The 85-year-old former president faces an array of charges, including complicity in the deaths of some 850 people killed in the Arab Spring-inspired uprising against him and corruption. He had been convicted in June last year of complicity in the deaths of protesters and sentenced to life in prison, but a retrial was ordered in January after he appealed. The charges carry a maximum penalty of death. Lawyers defending Mubarak, his Interior Minister Habib al-Adli, his two sons Allah and Gamal, and 6 security chiefs argue that extremists were primarily responsible for violence during the 2011 revolution. The former strongman has been held under house arrest at a military hospital since he left Tora jail last month. Since his first court appearance in August 2011, Mubarak has been treated for a range of ailments, including a heart condition and depression. He was even reported to have slipped into a coma last year.
Moving on, the African Union Peacekeeping Force recently organized a 2-day training session for local Somali women to teach themselves vital skills in self-defense in order to combat sexual violence, which has long become an issue in the Somali society.
A United Nations report notes that during the first half of this year, 800 cases of sexual and gender-based violence were reported in Mogadishu, capital of Somalia. 20 women from the internally displaced persons camps, where sexual violence has been on the rise, attended the training.
This is an important step. It is necessary to train ladies so that they can be able to defend themselves. It happens that at times it's only one man who rapes a lady. If she's duly trained, then she can defend herself effectively.
Though the African Union mission in Somalia hopes to empower women in self-defense, the force has recently been accused in a case that has sparked outrage among human rights groups last month. AMISOM soldiers were accused of allegedly abducting and raping a Somali mother. Government soldiers have also been accused of sexually abusing women in camps for the internally displaced.
Will enable them to have the skills to train other women in the IDP camps and in other areas to be able to defend themselves.
The 2-day training offered practical applications for self-defense and how to contact security agencies for help.
Now, in normal circumstances, a wheelbarrow is a tool used to ferry materials, mostly in construction sites. Surprisingly, though, the people of Kibera have learned to innovate and make use of what is readily available to them. They have made the wheelbarrow one of the most important tools to the day-to-day life. And well, it now serves as an ambulance.
Keep clear, Kibera's wheelbarrow ambulance is coming through. Today there is no emergency. This is a demonstration only. But often, with a blaring siren and a flashing emergency light, this makeshift ambulance and its operators are the first to respond to medical emergencies in parts of Kenya's largest slum. Vehicles struggle to move through the narrow alleys of Kibera, which are lined with mud, muck and swarms of passers-by. The terrain, low roofs and human traffic make movement difficult even for motorcycles, and especially in the dark.
Our ambulance is used to help the sick who live in the slum. And because inside the slum no car can enter, we are forced to use the wheelbarrow ambulance to enter into the slum and carry the sick.
Staff at the African Medical Research Foundation hatched upon this unique way of getting patients from the slum to their clinic. The wheelbarrow ambulance is used to assist pregnant women and bedridden patients suffering from tuberculosis or HIV and AIDS who are unable to get themselves to the nearest medical facility. The wheelbarrow itself is made up of a mattress covered by a white sheet and a battery-powered emergency light and siren. Wheelbarrow ambulance operators are trained in first aid and ensure the patient is stabilized before being transported in order not to risk sustaining more injuries. Community health workers keep the wheelbarrows at their home, and their telephone numbers are distributed among the residents so they can be reached in an emergency. There are currently just 4 wheelbarrows serving a population of 50,000 people in Line Saba, an area of Kibera, meaning there are often delays in response times as operators must travel long stretches of the community to reach the patients. Lydia Ndunge has certainly benefited from the wheelbarrow ambulance, having been struck down by vomiting, diarrhea and chest pains late last year.
Last year I got very ill and could not move from my bed or even get up. That's when the community health workers came to see me and confirmed that I could not move, so they came back with a wheelbarrow, brought me to this hospital, did first aid on me and called for a proper ambulance that took me to Mbagathi Hospital.
Wambua says the wheelbarrow ambulance has already saved many lives, including women and newly born babies.
The wheelbarrow has helped us. It has actually helped us in a big way, because there are instances where we pick up mother. There's this one time that a woman, who is my neighbor here in the slum, where she just gave birth abruptly. When I got there, the woman was just calling out for help. When I got into the house, the baby was already out and on the floor, and she did not know what to do. So I just rushed to my house and took my gloves, went to the shop and bought a razor blade, came back and cut the umbilical cord, took out the placenta, put her on the wheelbarrow ambulance and brought her here to this clinic. The baby was a very small baby. It was only 1.5 kilos. The child was taken to Kenyatta National Hospital and was there for about 2 months, and after the child was brought back to the mother.
Through the success of such a simple innovation, AMREF are hoping to extend the project across all of Kibera.
A wave of attacks struck Iraq in more than a dozen towns and cities, with at least 16 car bombs, killing 39 people and wounding more than 120 others.
The violence was the latest in months of unrelenting bloodshed, the country's worst since 2008, that has sparked concern Iraq is slipping back into the all-out sectarian war of previous years that has killed tens of thousands. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the violence, which largely struck majority Shia areas. Sunni militants linked Al-Qaeda, however, often target Iraq's Shia majority, whose adherents they regard as apostates. In Baghdad, meanwhile, a car bomb hit the convoy of Riyad al-Adha, chief of the provincial council and a Sunni lawmaker from the party of the National Parliament Speaker. Adha was unharmed, but 2 others, including one of his bodyguards, were killed and 4 people were wounded. Authorities have imposed tough restrictions on movement in the capital and elsewhere and carried out wide-ranging operations against militants, but insurgents have pressed the attacks.
A ceremony was held on Saturday to mark the end of the European Union training mission to train Mali's 2nd Battalion to help continue the fight against extremists in the north of the country.
The battalion is formed of 700 men who were given a 10-week training within the framework of the European Union training mission, which will be deployed in the north of the country.
I believe that the training they have just received, the one the battalion before them received, corresponds to what we expected. Now we have to prove on the field that this training is up to the challenges we will have to face.
The closing ceremony for the training of the Malian battalion ELO, Elephants in Tamashek language, was held in Kolikoro training camp.
General Dembele said a few minutes ago that the battalion Elu is the symbol of this new Malian army. Well, I think he's right. A new Malian army is taking shape, is being rebuilt, and it will have to be autonomous in the exercise of security and stability of the sovereignty of this country.
On this occasion, General Guibat awarded General Dimbel with the Medal of European Security and Defense Policy. Then the authorities delivered training badges to the Elo battalion soldiers, symbolizing the successful completion of the training period.
We are proud to be trained for our country, and we are going to carry out our tasks, which will be given to us with pride and rigor.
Authority of the Elu Battalion was left under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Samek.
Several dozen supporters of an Egyptian journalist facing a military trial on charges of spreading false news organized a protest in the canal city of Ismailia, where his trial began on Sunday, calling for his release.
Supporters of journalists accused by army of publishing false news about a battle with Sinai militants rally outside military court as his trial begins. The court adjourned the trial of Ahmed Abu Dira until Wednesday, September 18th, when it will resume hearing charges that the reporter published false news and tipped off militants to the location of troops in the Sinai region bordering on Israel. Al-Masri Al-Yum has called for his release and provided him with a lawyer who could not be reached for comment on the case. One colleague of Abdurrah, who refused to give his name, denied the accusations his colleague faced and called them fabricated.
We trust our colleague and are sure of his innocence. Therefore, we reject the military trials for civilians. We came to send this message, and some people from Cairo and other places supported us in our protest, and we thank them. They supported us at a time when many activists, journalists and institutions did nothing to support their colleague who is facing a military trial for accusation that we consider fabricated. Ahmed is innocent.
Since the army overthrew elected President Mohamed Morsi in July, civil rights groups have voiced the fears of a return to the authoritarian era of former President Hosni Mubarak, who was ousted by a pro-democracy uprising in 2011. His rule was marked by human rights abuses and the use of military tribunals to prosecute activists, journalists and political opponents. Abdurrah was arrested earlier this month in North Sinai, where militants have stepped up attacks since Morsi's removal.
He falsely reported that the armed forces destroyed mosque in Rafah and evacuated the locals to Sheikh Zuwayed, as well as targeting women and children during the military operation in Sinai. He also intentionally reported, internally and internationally, fake news and rumors about the military situation in Sinai and Egypt, whereas he made false reports about the armed forces and what it is doing in the city of North Sinai.
The army launched an offensive against militants in the Lawless Peninsula last week, involving dozens of tanks as well as armored vehicles and attack helicopters.
Now, more than 200 artists took part in a festival in Accra, Ghana, where their funds were treated to a weekend of fun. The two-day event was meant to promote and nurture an appreciation for different kinds of art among the Ghanaians.
This year, the street festival was bigger than the previous years. From artists to musicians to writers, not forgetting the designers, students and activists, they all worked together to produce Accra's only street art festival.
The main purpose is to, one, have community engagement in the sense that we bring art into the community, art that is not necessarily seen in the community, into the community. So, one, to take art out of the galleries into the streets such that people who necessarily will not have the opportunity to go to the galleries will be able to interact with it. And also to help people reimagine who they are.
The two-day event included street paintings, graffiti murals, interactive art installations, live street performances, extreme sports, experimental community theatre, independent African film screenings, recyclable design workshops, among others. Its success was due to the collective effort of many young people.
Well, we believe it's a merge of cultures. Chalwatis is actually a merge of cultures. It's a street art festival, and it's just nice to be a part of this program and to give Ghana that sort of mix of identity and cultural merger.
It is a fishing community inhabited primarily by indigenous Ga tribe. It's a popular tourist destination for those seeking to see the remnants of Accra's colonial past.
And in sports, Ethiopia's Kenenisa Bekele, world and Olympic record holder in the 5,000 and 10,000 meters, beat Mo Farah, Olympic and world champion in the same distances, by a second in the Great North Run half marathon.
Bekele's time was an unconfirmed 1 hour and 8 seconds, about a second ahead of Farah, with the fellow Ethiopian Gebre Selassie third, 31 seconds behind. In the women's race, Kenya's Priska Jepto won in an unconfirmed time of 1 hour 5 minutes and 44 seconds, with the Ethiopian duo of Tirunesh Dibaba and Meseret Defa coming in the second and third place respectively. The Great North Run is a half a marathon from Newcastle to Gateshead in England's northeast. Its organizers state that over 55,000 runners are taking part in this year's race, making it the world's biggest half marathon.
And that brings us to the end of Ebru Africa News today. Thank you for watching. I'm Rina Shivisi.